Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Quick Fix. This rather battered old painting is from my first book, New Botanical Painting, but what I want to talk about today is how to choose a colour palette, because I think a lot of us are a little bit stumped by that when starting off a piece. So I thought this would be a great example to help us. So I'm just going to pop that just up there for a second. The key colours in here, got reds, we've got greens, but within the red and green spectrum we've got a range of different colours. We've got orange, which is obviously very close to red. We've got a bit of pink on the other side of red. Then with green we've got some really bluey green, turquoisey tones, and then we've also got something a little bit more sort of along the sort of classic green. And down in this corner is where I planned the colour palette. So it wasn't all just luck or by chance. Anyone can plan a colour palette really well. So what I find as a good starting place is to go for two colours either side of the colour wheel. So some people say pink and green, some people say red and green. Red and green sort of roughly are there opposite each other on either sides of the colour wheel, and that means they are complementary colours. So if I just put a swatch of a red tone and a swatch of a green tone, I don't know about you, but that doesn't fill me with creative inspiration, and largely down to the fact that when you place two complementary colours next to each other at a similar level of intensity, they sort of want to fight each other rather than be a harmonious companionship. So how do we get from this to something more like this, and then a happy composition like this? Well, we play around with the value of watercolour. Now, value is all about going from the stronger colour through to the beautiful pale translucent shades that you can get with watercolour, but it also means looking at what's either side of the red in the palette. I've already mentioned we've got orange, we've got pink. So I'm going to use a real favourite technique of mine, which is those lovely colour blend circles to explore the many possibilities of the red and the green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that red and I'm going to look at all the colours that sit either side of it on the colour spectrum, and by using a wet tone here I can just play around with the little colours that I'm looking for in the margins. And what I mean by that is the little sort of blends that we get when two colours collide with an even level of water. We all know that when you add a little bit of a warmer sort of orangey amber ochre tone to pink, you get a nice blush tone, which is always lovely, even though I got a bit of dirt on my brush there, so a little bit muddy, but that is a really nice colour. We also can get some much more sort of intense crimson colours on the other side. I mean, red and green is a very classic sort of Christmas palette, which is quite bold and brash and in your face. We definitely want to avoid the Christmas palette if we're not painting something that is seasonal. But you see, from doing this, we suddenly open up possibilities of what red necessarily means. And then on the same tactic, we can take green. I'm using a new jar of water just off camera here. And I was talking about, you know, it's not just about the shades of different reds and greens, it's also about the lightness and darkness. This is a bit of cobalt turquoise here. Can always work really nicely, especially if you're looking at sort of pinky shades of red. Adding in a bit of a bluey green for me works really nicely. So I'm already feeling, and this is just a sort of personal inclination, and it's how I ended up at the conclusion of painting this piece here, is that by focusing on a strong sort of rose colour means that I probably want to make sure that the key green I use is not going to be just a direct sap green. I want it to be a bluey green, and then any of the sort of classic sap green I do use would be quite diluted. So if I just move this up here, there we go. What I'm going to do now is bring in this piece too, so we can see the shades that I might want. So something akin to a nice sort of bluey turquoisey green, mixing in with a sort of claret coloured red pink, to me seems really, really nice. But I think I want to get a bit of a blush colour in there. I don't want it to be sort of 100% orange, but I do want to get that warmth. And what we're doing, the whole point of this is so you can start a painting and feel really happy that it is already sort of planned out, worked out. Now it maybe feels a bit strong, so then I might just try it a bit more dilute. There you go, I kind of prefer that shade. So that is just the more dilute version of that. I think in terms of how many colours you want for your piece, anything between 4 and 6 tones I think is really good, and I think you want to have maybe one from either side as a nice concentrated colour, and then the rest should really be playing around with the more gentle dilute tones. That's a rather nice one as well. So yeah, anything between 4 and 6. And then what else did we have in here? That green is, yeah, it's a little bit greener than the one I've got in, so maybe keep that really pale. That one might work in there as well. So from that I can then mix up my colours in my palette ready to go, and then you can just paint away to your heart's content, focusing on the piece and the technique rather than worrying about the colours because you've already planned them out. So that is my quick fix today. It's a great starting point for choosing colour palettes. Focus in on 2 complementary colours on the colour wheel, play around with the colours either side of them in the spectrum, and also how much concentration, whether it's light, dark, and then give yourself a set of swatches and get painting. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again next time.